Hello, this is Tom for Tabletop Tap Room and the Star Frontiers Gamer. We're doing another Star Frontiers video. And the way this came about was I'm a sucker for archaeology. Love archaeology ever since I saw Indiana Jones, right? And that's not archaeology. I even took archaeology classes in college. But this show was on, I was going through the Roku, and on Hulu, there was this top 10 secrets show, and they were doing the top 10 secrets of ancient Egypt. And then they were doing the top 10 dictators of the ancient world, the top 10, secrets of ancient Greece, and, different episodes. And so I'm sitting there watching the top 10 secrets of Egypt, and I'm predicting what each one is before they tell you. And I got thinking, could do a video, top 10 secrets of the Star Frontier setting. Because I know a few secrets, and I just thought I'll just comb through the setting material, and I bet I can come up with a good 10 secrets of the Star Frontier setting. So that's our video today and how it came about. Before we get too deep into it, I just want to say thanks for watching the video. Thanks to our subscribers. You guys are great. And don't forget that like, subscribe, and bell icon to help me build the channel. Now, moving right along. Top 10 secrets you may or may not be aware of the Star Frontiers setting. Number 10. In our secrets of the Star Frontier setting, Star Law actually has a mandate to regulate interstellar commerce. Now, we're very familiar with the fact that Star Law's mission was to root out Sathar agents. After the Sathar War, when the Sathars not negotiated end, they just left what few could leave, and the rest were slaughtered. Whatever planets they were landed on, their ships were destroyed. So there was not a negotiated end, and the Sathar switched gears to subverting and sending in agents, hypnotized agents who would do terrorism, disrupt interstellar commerce, and so on and so forth. Star Law was founded to root out Sathar agents. Later on, it was added that they would also go after interstellar criminals, because the UPF supposedly is supposed to be a treaty organization like NATO, not a federal government over the frontier. So they needed this organization that would hunt down interstellar criminals, and they were supposed to be hands-off with the politics and laws of the individual planets. All well and good. However, what you may not realize is they have a mandate to regulate interstellar commerce. And when we go to, admittedly, Zeb's Guide, after the Blue Plague, and the MSO is set up, the Medical Services Organization, and they find a cure. You then get this entry that says a very tough laws and penalties are laid down by both the UPF and the Council of Worlds. Makes those sound like two different bodies. Very interesting. Concerning the interstellar transportation handling of flora and fauna, Star Law is given jurisdiction over planetary imports and exports. Basically, Star Law is now responsible for interstellar commerce, or for going after people who have violated the laws concerning transport of flora and fauna. Now, this kind of goes against the what we saw in the Warriors of White Light module, where the Royal Marines, the militia of the White Light system, is doing cargo inspections, and presumably it's not just for contraband, for the weapons. They're doing health inspections, they're doing scans. So it's kind of a weird thing that it was added in Zebulon's Guide, but it's there. And so it's an expansion of Star Law's power to not only be going after the Sathar agents and interstellar criminals, but they're also somehow involved in regulating interstellar commerce. Now, I would suggest that, like the Dragon magazine articles on Star Law, there's two of them. In one, we find out there's a whole branch of Star Law that just does penal. This just does the penitentiaries, the penal asteroids, and the prisons if they're on planets. And I would say that you would have a whole branch of Star Law that falls under Star Law, and all they do is cargo inspections. They're at ports of call. They board. They do scans. They check manifests. Maybe you're on the list of interstellar criminals they're looking for. Maybe there's a bee on the lookout for you, and so they'll run that. But by and large, Star Law is not an organization that fields any starships. They borrow them. They can commandeer them. That's part of their mandate. They can commandeer a starship if they need it. And I'm sure that they can just go, hey, we need a ship. And, Space Fleet will be like, provide an assault scout. The crew comes along. They aid in a mission. They're there to give the Star Law agent a ride where he's going because he's running down an agent, Sathar agent, or interstellar criminal. So that's what I would do, is I would form that whole branch of Star Law that is involved with regulating interstellar commerce. Now, number 9, I don't have a little tile to throw up here for you. I've been thinking about this because I had imagined a Cybot. Why would you make a Cybot back in the day when I first got Star Frontiers? And I just thought, well, if they're using part body parts and a robot body, and it's got the same stamina as a regular robot body, I just imagined that Cybots had to be, they were taking the human brain and connecting it to a robot body and then wiping the brain and use. So it's very much a RoboCop theme. But when Star Frontiers was being done, I really believe that what they were thinking of was the Terminator, that it was a Cybot with an anthropomorphic body and skin over it, very much. And I started thinking about this more when I read the Murderbot Diaries. If you've not checked them out, there's a series of books. I believe they're intended to be like young adult teenage literature. So they're pretty clean, no bad language, no sex, none of that. But it's really great sci-fi, and it's about a cybernetic a robot hacking himself and then liberating himself and becoming a free agent, free moral agent. And so it's his recollections. It's him talking. It's his diary. He's the narrator of the story. So it's a first person narration, but it's a really great story. And if he's ever offline, the story goes offline, and then you have him waking up and then trying to figure out what happened while he was offline. So it's very cool. And as I was reading these and I got thinking about it, I really believe that the original Cybot was not intended to be RoboCop, which is how I generally interpreted them for decades, but to be the Terminator from the Terminator movies. So it's not that it's organic and it's got somebody's brain in there like RoboCop, that it's a robot. It looks like a robot, acts like a robot when you pull the skin off, but it's got flesh and blood systems and enough organic systems to keep that flesh alive and going. And so I believe that was the secret that for number 9, not a big secret, but there we have it. Number 8, I believe, and I have a tile for you, that LACO in the Dixon star system is intended to be the ancient Egypt of the Star Frontier setting. In the 70s and the 80s, when the people were putting together this game, you had the whole world had gone gaga, crazy for ancient Egypt, because in the 70s, the Treasures of King Tut did this little international tour. I think they visited 4 cities here in the U.S. And so Time Magazine and National Geographic Magazine and, and newspapers covered it. And um, people had gone gaga for ancient Egypt. And they still are to a certain degree. But the tetrarchs, I think, are intended because in the logo, in the revised logo for the Pan-Galactic Corporation, they put the pyramids and they look like Egyptian pyramids, just like. So I would have imagined the Tetrarch pyramids to be something a little different than ancient Egyptian pyramids, but they just put them right in the Pan-Galactic logo, the revised one that's in Zebulon's Guide, as ancient Egyptian pyramids. So I really believe that this secret is that they're intended to be the ancient Egypt of the frontier. Number 7 is, where are these mega cities? These huge cities that are discussed in the rule books. So in the Alpha-Dawn and Zeb's Guide, we have these letter codes for a system and planetary listing, and then you get an H for heavy population. And the Alpha-Dawn book says that the planet has many large cities that are very crowded, and hundreds of smaller cities, and individual cities may cover hundreds of square kilometers. Zeb's Guide expands on that. The planet has numerous large cities and hundreds of smaller cities, and individual cities may be considered maxi cities that cover thousands of square kilometers. I'm thinking that what they're envisioning is what we would come to know as Coruscant in the Star Wars setting, where it's just a massive set, and they're not saying that the city covers the whole planet, but you could imagine it as covering like from Washington, D.C. to Boston, all one major maxi city. Just, okay, so where are these cities in the setting? They're not specified. Well, the couple of candidates come up. I think when you look at Minotaur, the planet Minotaur, and its capital is called Maze, which picks up the whole idea of the Minotaur. But when something's a maze, it's really complicated. So I would nominate Maze as a maxi city. Because a city can be like a maze. So if you had the city was so big you could not find your way around in it, it would certainly qualify as a maze. And so hence Maze probably from the very beginning was huge, was laid out, and they just kind of laid and spread it out. In the Northeast, eastern seaboard, because real estate's been sewn up for a long time, we built up. When you get to the West Coast, they didn't build up so much, they just built out. And I think coming in to a new situation, colonizing a planet, and then you're starting to lay out, I think they might have laid out broadly and planned to lay out broadly, not so much to build up, but to build out, same as like a Los Angeles or San Diego, where it builds out. And so Maze would be my number 1 candidate for a maxi city in the Star Frontier setting. But also, I would say Port Lauren. Port Lauren is a heavy population planet. All 4 species have contributed to the population there. And Port Lauren is the heart and soul of, it's where the UPF's headquartered, it's where the Council of Worlds is, it's where Starlaw is headquartered, it's where Pan-Galactic Corporation, the premier corporation of the frontier, is headquartered. Galactic Task Force is headquartered there. The Space Fleet has headquarters in the system. There's an academy. There's a space station that's an academy for Space Fleet in that system. There's just too much going on there. So Port Lauren really begs to be one of the maxi cities in the setting. That is number 7. Number 6, the real power in the UPF. Now, the real power in the UPF, I believe, is 2 megacorps. And obviously, I'm going to go with Pan-Galactic Corporation. And here you get that logo with the Egyptian pyramids inserted for the A's. And Pan-Galactic Corporation here, We find out that consensus has it PGC is the largest business entity in the frontier, but no factual data has been released to support this belief. Yes and no. The PGC has some offices on nearly every planet, every inhabited planet. That goes back to the Alpha Dawn original listing where it talked about them having a showroom to sell their goods on every planet. So keep that in mind, that they had showrooms on every planet to sell their goods, and they were the first megacorp. There were no other megacorps competing with them. So PGC has all these offices, and most of its but has now confined. Used to have showrooms, used to be a major manufacturer. They have now confined most of its operations to financial areas, industrial research, funding frontier explorations, loans for businesses, ventures, investments, and backing of new governments, and so forth. They're very much in the business of influencing politicians. Money is flowing from PGC into political campaigns, and they are manipulating and making sure the right people get elected that they want to see elected in governments. So what governments are we talking about? Well, you could make the case and say, well, wait a minute. The Alpha Dawn rules say that the UPF's nothing more than a treaty organization like NATO. So it's not really a government. It kind of is, but because it's passing laws. But clearly, they're getting involved in planetary governments. They do not want planetary governments passing laws and interfering in their businesses. And they're very much the movers and shakers interstellar wise. They are the first megacorp. They are the company. And so they are involved. Now, it's also interesting when you look at their number one competitor is Streel Corporation. Streel Corporation has grown remarkably in the last few decades and is fast approaching PGC in size and financial power. So they're a notch behind PGC. Streel offices are now spread throughout the frontier and the rim. The later area, PGC is neglected. Streel backs technological research, banking systems, savings and loan institutions, and financial backing for real estate and agricultural areas. So Streel is going hard into the financial areas, same as Pan Galactic Corporation. They're not explicitly said to be trying to influence governments, but I mean, come on. It's a megacorp. They're influencing governments. At the very least, they're influencing the government in Truane Star, where they're headquartered. They probably have their hands deep in the pocket of the government at Truane Star. So the real power throughout the frontier is Streel and PGC. And as the UPF, the United Planetary Federation, when it first started out, and Pan Galactic Corporation did not have solid control of it when they first started out, they're first founded after the first Sathar War, I believe that they heavily pushed like, oh no, yeah, we don't want no federal government. It's a treaty organization. And so they've built it as a treaty organization. But as PGC has gained more and more influence and more actually controls the UPF through its proxies, through politicians that it owns, more or less, I believe that they've just, stopped pushing it's only a treaty organization. And they actually are very much like, yeah, well, of course we pass laws. Of course the UPF passes laws. Hence, they passed a law concerning Star Law would begin to regulate interstellar commerce. So I believe the real power is Pan Galactic Corporation and Streel as the top two dogs in the megacorp market, in the megacorp chessboard. Number 5. Now, we all know that the cliques abandoned the heliopes on Star Mist. The module, I think, says 700 years ago. The here in the timeline, it says 950 years before the 950 PF, which would be essentially before the first Southar War. They did it. So it's a little discrepancy between the module and Zeb's guide. My point with this is that the secret here is, why did the cliques have that god-awful Bolo-sized tank, that super tank, the size of a Bolo? Maybe even, it could even be bigger than the Bolos tanks in the Bolo novels. Why did they have that? To have a tank that size, to warrant the justification of building a tank that size, you have to have a threat to match that tank. You have to be worried about someone. And the fact that they're operating 900 to 700 years prior to the first Southar War, and we learned from the Volturnus modules that 900 years prior to the events in the Volturnus modules, the Southar came to Volturnus, and the remnant of Enora call it the Day of Doom, or what, Day of Destruction, whatever it says there in the module. That means that the cliques and the Southar are operating in a very similar area of space. They're not far from each other. You've got the Southar visiting Volturnus. You have the the cliques visiting Starmist. So they're in the same volume of space, and they are, massively violent opportunists who are willing to use other species. The Southar did slave bots of the Enora. The cliques have a subjugated species they control, and they mind wipe whenever they feel like it. They just erase your memories, so you have no memory of them, what they did to the Heliopes. So you have these aggressive, violent species that use other species and don't really care about them very much. Very similar. And these two species like this existing in the same area of space would come into conflict with each other. So I believe that the cliques and the Southar have been at war with each other. If the cliques are still around, that's not something that's settled in Star Frontiers canon. If they're still around, then the cliques and the Southar have been going at it for centuries. And that's the big secret here, is that the enemy of the cliques is the Southar. Number four is both a secret and an assumption. It's an assumption some players make. Now, Alpha Dawn, the Alpha Dawn rulebook, tells us that the Pangalactic language, a universal trained language everybody understands, the verse do not speak it, but they certainly understand it. The humans, Yuzarians, Drolosites all speak it. It's despite the fact that everybody has their own private personal language, Yuzarian, human language, Drolosite language, Versk language. Pangalactic is this universal trade language, and it was invented by Pangalactic Corporation, hence the name. Well, the other thing is, and many people have just made the assumption that the calendar, the Galactic Standard Time calendar, was also invented by Pangalactic Corporation. This is not necessarily true because the rules don't say it. It doesn't say in here that they did it, but this follows the paragraph about the language in the Alpha Dawn rulebook. So the secret here is what other authority would establish a calendar like this, not tied to any one planet, that helps facilitate interstellar trade, that you would use for interstellar trade and communication, and become this universal calendar, despite the fact that your planet has a 50-hour day, and your calendar would be so off compared to everybody else's because you've got a 50-hour day. It would have to be Pangalactic Corporation as the premier company, the first megacorp. The power in the frontier would be the organization that had helped create this calendar Galactic Standard Time, and Galactic, Pan-Galactic, names are kind of close. So it's not official, but I think it has to be. It's one of those assumptions many people make in the game setting. Number 3, Pan-Galactic Corporation evolved. We see here the Alpha-Dawn explanation for Pan-Galactic Corporation. To supply the needs of these worlds, the first interstellar company, Pan-Galactic Corporation, was formed. It developed interests in everywhere from scientific research to farming to space shipbuilding. PGC even created its own language, Pan-Galactic, which soon became the most common language of all races in the frontier worlds. Many large companies, which started later, were modeled on Pan-Galactic, but none approached the size and power of Pan-Galactic Corporation. Pan-Galactic Corporation had showrooms. Practically every planet, maybe planets that are only an outpost, don't have a PGC showroom, but certainly they have the catalog, kind of like a Sears and Roebuck catalog. But it was very much a manufacturing corporation. But then, and we've already read this description on the point about the real power, they shifted themselves away from manufacturing. They still manufacture stuff, yes, but they've stopped competing with the megacorp that does all the robotics. They are not competing so much with trans travel for the whole travel market. They've shifted into finance, and they've gone into finance and insurance and influencing governments. And this is where their focus really is in later frontier. So this is a company in flux that has evolved. And you have to remember that the company is something that has grown and changed and evolved like an animal species. Number 2 in our countdown, the number 2 secret of the frontier, Nesmith Enterprises of Triad, also known as NET. The NET holds patents on most computer and communications equipments. Competition between NET and II is strong, but not yet erupted into corporate war. Both megacorps would like to expand into the counterparts. II is very much industrial and high-tech megacorp. So they both would like to branch into the other's area of expertise. But they've not gone there, and they've not started a corporate war yet. That's kind of like a little bit of bait for you to grab and say, hey, we can do a campaign here, a corporate war campaign for the player characters as stringers for this company, cutouts to do some corporate espionage. So it's a volatile situation, and Starlaw is trying to contain it because of NET's patents on programming units, projects. This is a Zebulon's Guide thing, and body computers, body comps, plus the circuitry for most communications and radio phones. Most other megacorps have never even considered competing with NET. Well, in the beginning, it was PGC making all of that. So, it's more like maybe NET came along with something a little bit better, like Apple versus Android, and now everybody's converted to one or the other. It's headquartered in Malecon Valley. Sounds like Silicon, Malecon Valley, and the Mal is Spanish for bad. So I think it's a little bit of a hint like, yeah, these are not good. This is not a good guy corporation of Triad Cassadine system. And the chief executive is unknown. Why? Why is the chief executive unknown? Well, what's the big secret? You would know who the top guy is of a corporation. When do we not know who the top guy is of a corporation? It's just not common that happens. It's so uncommon that I think, in light of who and what this corporation is, that the real secret here is that an AI is running the corporation. Very much like you see in iRobot, when it was it Vicky or Victoria Vicky is running the corporation there. She's gained control of the corporation. The CEO only thinks he's in control. And of course, he gets rubbed out in the course of the movie. But very much that kind of a thing. And that's the secret. We don't know who the CEO is. Why don't we know? Because the computer is the CEO. Vicky is in charge. It's very much begging for you to run a whole iRobot type of scenario going on. Maybe one of your players wants to have a robot PC. Why not? There are articles in the original run of the Star Frontiersman for robot PCs. Grab one of those, go with it, and you could actually have a great campaign here. Get II Corporation involved. Have some corporate war beginning, outbreak. Maybe somebody's a Star-Law agent trying to contain that. So this is a great secret, and it's number 2 on our list. But number 1, who is the investors? In Zebulon's Guide, we get the cadres and criminal organizations detailed for us, and the investors is an ultra-secret covert organization of a few billionaires, your Elon Musks and your Bill Gates of the world. But we know who those people are, so why don't they know who these people are? Who wish to be the behind-the-scenes controllers of the UPF. While the UPF is presently an organization that comprises all of the Frontiers planetary and system governments, treaty organization, yeah, right. The investors believes it could develop the UPF into a body that would override all local governments. Hence, my saying earlier, the UPF is actually an organization, even though it's officially specified to be a treaty organization. It's an organization that's evolving just as much as the PGC Corporation is evolving. While its aims, the investors, and methods are similar to those of the FFF, the Free Frontiersman Foundation, I think is what that one is. The investors is a much smarter and more hidden group. The investors try to gain control by financial wars, not by actual military ventures as the FFF would. So who are these billionaires, these billion creditors? You could presuppose that maybe a CEO of a megacorp, like in this case, we find out that the CDC specializes in insurance companies and operations risky. Chief executives, you have members of the board of directors share equal power, and most noted is the director is Zoprothon Adrolosite. My problem with this guy of CDC is that Adrolosites are into philosophy, and I don't know if somebody like Zoprothon would be philosophically against the taking over of the UPF by the investors, or would he, by his philosophy, be like, dictatorish, fascist, Benito Mussolini, Adolf Hitler type, gonna take it all over. However, I do think when we go back and look at the Pangalactic Corporation's entry and how they are so concerned with shifting their company to controlling finances and industry and business and governments, this is like, their CEO would be the poster child for the investors. In fact, when you stop and think about it, PGC is the number one richest corporation in the frontier. They've actually taken over a whole star system and run it as their own personal fiefdom. I think Chang Kim Lee is a member of the investors. So that is my number one secret of the Star Frontier setting. Chang Kim Lee, the CEO of PGC, almost logically has to be a member of the investors. And if not, they're certainly looking to recruit him. So there you have it. My top 10. You might disagree. Is there a secret I overlooked? Please go ahead and list it in the comments below. I appreciate it. And again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon and comment. It helps. It all helps the algorithm. It's all good. It's good for the program. It's good for the show. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is Tom for Tabletop Taproom and the Star Frontiers Gamer. Keep on gaming, and I will see you in the frontier.